Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're here with another episode of the Together for Sharon podcast. I'm Sharon's son, George. Along with me is my wife, Greta, Sharon's daughter-in-law, and we were my mother's caretakers after she was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease. She passed sadly on 1/1/2020, and we started TogetherForSharon.com in her memory. Today, I want to welcome Esther Labib Kiyaras, who actually has become a close friend of mine, and I consider her family. So I just want to get right into this. And obviously you'll notice I'm promoting Parkinson's awareness always, but the Parkinson's Foundation, because Esther is a very big role and pivotal one in the Parkinson's Foundation. So welcome, Esther, and thanks again for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's so nice to meet your beautiful wife.
So nice to meet you, Esther. George talks so much about you and everything that you do and all the awareness that you still bring to Parkinson's disease. And my hopes today, speaking with you, is that others who have Parkinson's and others who just want to learn about Parkinson's can leave here learning something new, something valuable, and something fun about you.
Oh, thank you. I hope so too.
So I guess let's get started. How has living with Parkinson's changed you and your life?
It's an interesting question because it changes everything and nothing at the same time, because the day-to-day of your life doesn't really change. I mean, your responsibilities are still your responsibilities. But I think how your outlook on life changes a lot. Obviously, you appreciate things a lot more, just like simple things. When your body starts doing weird stuff that, you can't control, it kind of forces you to let go of control in a lot of other areas of your life, which is a good thing. There's always silver linings to everything. But I was thinking, like, I'm on a new medication now that has helped a lot of the issues that I was having with my walk. But when you start to have that trouble walking, you think about how you just went through your whole life and you never thought about walking, or you never thought about being still, or you never thought about, all this myriad of things that we have to deal with. For me, my voice is a big one. Like, I have to be conscious to speak louder than what is natural to me, or people won't hear me. Those kind of things used to be just so automatic, and now they're not. And so you appreciate those days that you don't have to worry about those things. And so, yeah, I just think it makes you appreciate life a lot more.
Before I get
That was beautiful, yeah.
Before I get to the next question, I do want to say how we met. I lost my mother 4 years ago now, and I just was on social media. I didn't really do much with it for 2 years, and I just happened to see you, Melissa and Mark, and you three of you. Like I always tell you, even though you're probably tired of hearing it, it just changed my life forever. You give me hope, you give me inspiration, and the reason I fight today is mainly because of you three, and obviously the rest of the Parkinson's community. But every time I'm tired, burnt out, or feel like I shouldn't keep fighting, I see the three of you fighting, posting, and the most exciting thing I hope we'll get to today is your presence on social media, like millions of people. And to me, it should be billions eventually. I'll help you get to that. But I think people who stand up like you and Mr. Michael J. Fox are my heroes, because, if we all just kind of go on our way, ignore the issue here, and not fight to end Parkinson's, and more, this is going to jump from maybe 1 million people in the US, 10 million in the world, to bigger than, unfortunately, Alzheimer's, which is another horrific disease. So I just want to thank you again for that, and really for keeping me pushing forward. And I mean, you're an incredible young lady, and there's just so many more questions that I will just get right into, because I want to.
Well, can I just say one thing real quick though, George? I mean, I feel this exact same way about you, because I've told, several different podcasts I've done, like, I never saw myself as an advocate. I just saw myself as a mom on social media and that got Parkinson's. And it was just something that started out for myself, like I was looking for somebody like me. And then I met Melissa, You know, Melissa, I was looking back at my old post. She actually commented on the first post that I ever made. And, you know, we've been friends ever since. And you were the first person that reached out to me to interview me. And I don't know if you remember this, but you sent that that form letter of questions, and it was like, tell me about your advocacy. And I was like, I don't have advocacy. Like, I'm just a mom on TikTok. But then it stuck in my head when that article came out. I was like, if this guy thinks I'm an advocate, then I guess I'm an advocate. Like, I mean, if I guess so. And it changed my life. You know, it completely changed the trajectory of my life. Because then I realized, you know, once I started growing so much, I never fathomed that anybody would even watch any of my stuff, you know. And now I grow exponentially every day on all the platforms, but especially TikTok. And every time I do a live, somebody newly diagnosed reaches out to me every time. And
Wow.
it's heartbreaking, but it's necessary. You know, it's so important because I'm that person now for that person that Melissa was for me. And that's how we pay it forward, you know, and create that community and create that awareness, because people love to say, especially with YOPD, that we're so rare, right? That it's like some of the statistics are like 7%, less than 14%, you know, but it's growing exponentially in all of the categories, you know, and specifically under 50. I think one of the insurance companies pushed out data that it's like over a 200% increase in the last decade,
Oh my
you
gosh.
know. So I mean, that to see the younger people, especially on TikTok, which obviously is that younger demographic, having to grapple with that, it pales in comparison to what I went through. You know, it's just, I can't imagine being in my 20s or single or just trying to figure out life and then having to deal with Parkinson's. So my thanks is 100% to you, and you motivate me so much because you're so persistent. And I think we all have those periods where we're like, I don't even know if what I'm doing is helping anybody. Maybe I'm just like too much, like I should stop. And then I'm like, if George can be out here on like every platform posting like 5 times a day and still excited to do more, like what excuse do I have, you know?
I think the key is have no shame. Like I have no shame. Until we have a cure, I'm not gonna, I'll do anything. I like when Mark threw like pies in his face. I don't know. I don't think
Yeah.
that's where my line is drawn there. But you actually
He's
answered.
so funny.
That's why I love that we all also at the end we'll talk about how we have where we all work together. But you kind of alluded to this already. But what do you think some of the misconceptions might be of having Parkinson's? I know I even just was recently told it was a misconception that it's an old man's disease. So we need to obviously again do awareness to change that. So maybe you can just touch on the misconceptions of having Parkinson's.
Yeah, well, I mean, a big part of why I do what I do is just like, I feel like just by me existing and being me, like being female, being under 50, being a mom, you know, whatever, just by that aesthetic is like contradictory to what I thought. Because when I first was told, you know, we think you might have Parkinson's, I was like, that's insane. That makes zero sense. I have never met anybody with Parkinson's that wasn't, you know, elderly. And that was nuts to me. And so that impacted me because I had that bias, I had that misconception just like everybody else. And so now that I'm in it and I see not only are there so many people like me, that it's literally anybody, like I said, like 20 something. There's a guy in the UK that got diagnosed at 9 years old. There's children that have this disease.
Wow.
You know, there's every race, every presentation. There's people who never get tremors. You know, there's people that are gamut of symptoms. Like I never lost my sense of smell, and but I know a lot of people that have. I know people that have just stiffness, you know, the freezing of gait stuff. Like it just, and there's some people that their progression is so slow that they barely need medication and they just maintain it with exercise, you know. But my thing with awareness is like, I want it to be the default when you see somebody like me shaking. Like, I don't want the default to be like she's drunk or she's on drugs or like scary. I want it to be in people's minds. This could be Parkinson's for the for society, and then for people that are looking for answers to their own healthcare stuff so that they can advocate. Because I've heard stories of doctors, and that happened to me, where a doctor will say, you know, you don't look like Parkinson's. Well, there is no look like Parkinson's. You know, that's just the reality of it.
You touched on so many important factors. Like you could just kept hitting it one after another. But I know going back to initially when you didn't see, even though you don't see yourself as an advocate, what motivated you to show yourself, to be vulnerable with the whole world? I know you also said you wanted to link up with others and, you know, reach out and see, is there anyone else like me out there? You know, is that what motivated you to initially?
Honestly, I mean, I can go exactly back to that moment in my bathroom where I was like, I'm gonna show my tremor, you know, because I was looking at other people's content and I was seeing a lot of support, but I wasn't seeing tremor, you know. I was seeing a lot of this, you know what I mean, like this, and then I'm just looking at it and I'm thinking, what's going down what's going on down there? I want to know what's going on, because for me
Yeah.
it's a wreck. And I wanted to see it, and I just to validate myself. And one night I was just like really off. This was before I got on medication.
Right.
And I was like, I'm just going to show it. And it was just a really spontaneous, really vulnerable moment. And I was really uncomfortable, but I just pushed through it. And immediately I got positive feedback about it. And I think that's the other thing that people don't understand about social media. Maybe it's just my experience, but I remember thinking, I'm going to get roasted. Like every hater is weirdo is going to come out of the woodwork and roast me, and this is just going to be a nightmare. And but I'm like, I'm going to do it anyway. And I did it, and all I got was support, you know, like I almost without exception, you know, not just from the community but just from people with other, that's what you realize, is everybody's got something, you know, everybody's got something that they're dealing with. And so that's what people come to my page for, is to give and get that support for the struggles that we're going through. And all it takes is one. You get that one comment that's like, yes, that's me, and thank you. And then you're like, okay, I'm going to keep doing that. And that's what I did.
Something that you touched on earlier too, I really, really wanted to ask about, and I don't know if I should. But this
You
is
have,
for information. Either way, do you think that Parkinson's as a whole needs more umbrellas to cover, you know, more different types of Parkinson's? I know there's the stages, there's the young onset, but does there need to be more categories and more things so that people can feel more seen? People like you too, women,
Yeah,
they
I
can be
mean,
seen and studied, you know.
one thing that I figured out pretty early on, and it was good when I went to Mayo, they didn't, my movement disorder specialist that diagnosed me didn't tell me you have Parkinson's disease. He said, you have Parkinsonisms, you have
Right.
some kind of Parkinsonian disorder, and we don't even know yet what that could be. Like it could be PSP, it could be, you know, whatever. And so it's based on those symptoms. And then when you get into the symptoms, you look at something like dystonia, for example, which I have in my neck, and that was one of my presenting symptoms. The pain in our muscles is generally the most painful symptom that we have. I have it in my foot too. Then I got introduced to the whole dystonia community. There's a whole dystonia community, right? So then I would post about tremor, and then all the people with essential tremor would come out, or tardive dyskinesia, or all these, and they're like, we're like the same but different. And that's why I've said for a while, like I really feel like the sort of umbrella of neurological diseases would give us so much more power, you know,
Yeah.
because we're sharing medication, we're sharing struggles, but we're all kind of fragmented. There's a whole category of drug-induced Parkinsonism
Right.
that people have, that, and they're all kind of trying to find their own little niches too. but we're still, again, like going through the same thing I'm pretty active on X, what used to be Twitter now. And the ALS community is really big on that platform. And I have, discussions with a lot of people with ALS that our symptoms are so similar, but unfortunately theirs is so much faster progressing, but in a way it gives you perspective, because it's like, okay, I'm complaining about this and he can't swallow
Yeah.
anymore. He can't walk anymore, and so it always like checks me and puts me back in reality of like, every day that I can walk, every day that I can swallow, for me, that's a blessing. And we're all kind of under that same, like you said, like umbrella of these neurological disorders that all need more research,
Yeah.
and none of us have a cure.
Yeah. Thank you for speaking about those.
Just want to shift a little now towards more the topic we all love is family. So what support system do you have in place, whether it's from treatment, lifestyle changes, but really a lot about family? That's I was curious about, because I know you have a beautiful one, family.
Yeah, and thank you so much for asking. Well, I mean, this is a perfect day to ask me that, because my family is so important. My husband brought me breakfast in bed this morning.
We didn't
Aw.
ruin Hope we didn't ruin that with the podcast.
So don't be jealous, but be jealous.
I haven't had that. She has. They're saying I shouldn't be jealous because my wife's not bringing me breakfast.
But yeah, I mean, if you don't have the support of your family, like, what do you have? Because that's what it's all about. Because when all of this dies away, I mean, unfortunately, I've said this for a while too, like, you see the drop off in the advocates, especially on social media, usually after a certain number of years. And I've talked to advocates about that. And that's just a lot to do with the progression and the symptomology and stuff, like how much things that do you really want to focus on, which is why I'm like trying to hit it hard in the beginning, because I just know that that's kind of just the nature of this. So what's going to really count for me, as always with all of us, is my family. I have the support of my husband, which is the most important person in my life, and then my children, which I always laugh about, because they only know me like this, like they've only seen this kind of evolution with me, and they also kind of put me in my place a lot with their hot takes on on the humor of this. I was playing badminton with my son a couple weeks ago, and he's like, "Gosh, Mom, you're like really good for somebody with a shaky hand." I'm like, "Oh, thanks, I appreciate that." But they're good, and they keep you active, and they keep you in the moment. You with kids, they just really know how to live in the moment. So they always keep you grounded and in the moment, which I love.
Thank you. It's so nice to hear that you have so much love surrounding you and a good support system in place, including yourself, because you can be your whole support system too.
Yeah. Self-care.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, what are your strengths, interests, and abilities that you continue on despite having Parkinson's?
So when I left my job, that was a big thing that I was thinking of, is like, how can I use those skills that I developed over the years through education and experience in my career to translate to Parkinson's advocacy. So, as George mentioned, before I even resigned my position, I had already been appointed to the board at the Parkinson's Foundation, and we had already discussed kind of what my role on their patient advisory board could be. And I'm in the Southwest chapter, which is exciting for me because I grew up in Las Vegas, and I lived in Albuquerque and Arizona, and now I live in West Texas. So I'm like a Southwestern girl for sure. But what I did professionally was what's called performance improvement. So it's like taking healthcare systems and making them better. And so that's kind of my approach to, that's how I think, is like, how can we make this better, especially from a healthcare perspective? Because I didn't understand the healthcare system until I became a patient. I mean, that's the reality of it. Like, we spend our careers working in a system that we're not utilizing really because
Right.
we're healthy. And then when you become a patient and you're in it, you realize all the things that you did to try to make things easier don't always work, and sometimes make things much harder than we ever imagined. And so that's really the focus of my advocacy, is just kind of giving that perspective of like, I see both sides. You know, my father was a surgeon, my husband is a doctor of pharmacy. Like, I worked in hospitals and clinics all my life, like making people see that this has to be a partnership, you know, between the healthcare system and the patients, the doctor and the patients, because we don't have, but tempered with the fact that we have to learn from each other in the community. Because realistically, my doctor gets an hour with me. He's not going to answer
Right.
the questions that come up, you know, with me on a daily basis. So the community sharing information on social media and in support groups and all that stuff gives us that ability to bridge, like, what's working for you, and then what, I don't know, that's not working for me, and then we can go back to our doctors and have really exchange of information. But I also feel like that's probably where we're lacking the most. I keep asking, like, where is that forum besides World Parkinson Conference where we can really sit down and say, look, this is what we need, and what do you need from us to get us there, you know? And so I'm out there hunting. We have good people on our board that I know are committed to that too. And so it's great to be with an organization that listens and takes feedback and makes changes. You know, they're reissuing the newly diagnosed kit is coming out, reimagine the hospital safety guide, same thing. So that's going to be my focus moving forward this year, is just getting that into the hands of doctors' offices and into the hands of patients and caregivers.
I love that you found a way to feel useful, to use all your skills. That's a common theme with other Parkinson's people that I've spoken to. They've said, I've had to pivot, change careers completely. And it's really incredible too how caretakers sometimes take on a role too, really active role.
Yeah.
In fundraising and all these organizations aspects. It's really interesting, and I'm really happy that you found a new purpose, a new reimagined purpose that you can benefit from. Yeah, it's amazing.
And I have a lot of followers actually that are like, you know, really vocal and asking questions. And then I think that they have Parkinson's, and then they'll be like, oh, no, it's my husband or my
Amazing,
father,
right?
or, you know, and I'm like, or even my neighbor, you know, and I'm like, or a friend, you
That's
know, like,
amazing.
wow,
Yeah.
like, what a great, it just like opens your heart, because you're like, oh my gosh, like, people really care. And I think in this day and age, we want to kind of, again, that's kind of the bad side of social media. We're seeing so much negative stuff. And you think, oh, it's so bleak out there. But then you realize, like, most people are just really trying and really good people. And it's really like heartwarming to see. I want to cry sometimes, because I'm like, you would do this like for your neighbor? Like, you're an awesome person.
Yeah. That's amazing.
We love that you're involved with the Parkinson Foundation, because we're excited that somehow I'm on the committee for the walk here in South Florida. So Boca, actually, I think it's in more like Palm Beach area.
Up. Yeah.
Like Wellington area, but it's going to be coming soon. And I don't know if you could talk for a minute about their mission, and then from there, just as you could tell, we have some nice gear we're promoting. We've donated a lot of, probably about $5,000 of our own family fund. They're linked on our page if anyone listening wants to donate in memory of my mother or Esther for the Parkinson's Foundation, but they hold their moving day around the world. Actually, today in Miami, they have an event on the bikes in the gym, but Miami's that's pretty far for us, but I wish they'd have one around us, but they always have so many good things going on. Why did you choose them over, other organizations? And then maybe you could touch on any other future projects you might be working on before we get to the fun part, which is I call it the lightning round. And if you can't hear this, but this is a great sound machine I bought. No one can hear.
Nothing. Silence.
Lightning sounds. We'll just pretend we hear them right now.
Yeah, so the Parkinson's Foundation kind of found me, but it ended up being, just a really great thing. So as you mentioned, Mark and Melissa were probably the first people from the community that supported me on TikTok. And Mark had watched some of my stuff and he messaged me like, have you thought about doing becoming an ambassador? And I was like, an ambassador, like that just sounds so fancy. Like what even is that? Do I get a sash or like what is that about? And he
One of these.
sent me a
Get one of these.
I get a do-rag. So I was like, yeah, sure. So I filled out a form on their website. You just go to volunteers section on the Parkinson.org website. I filled it out. And somebody called me and was like, we just were talking and I told them my story and they're like, what do you want to do? You know, because we have lots of stuff to be done. And I gave them my background and they're like, yeah, I mean, I think it'd be a good fit. So there's like a training that you do to become an ambassador. And then when I went through that after I went through that training, Mark reached out to me again and said they have an opening on the Southwest chapter board. So by that time, I had started to look into more information. And when I got diagnosed, and unfortunately, this is the case for so many people, like you're just not given any information. Now, it's not the case for everyone. I know some people who have, but I was given zero information. I got a piece of paper that just like explained how the drugs worked. That was it. I wasn't connected to any resources whatsoever. And so when I went to Parkinson.org, I was like, oh my gosh, if I had had that, like it's all there. And actually, I got really mad because I was like, like, why don't they tell us this? Like just going to Parkinson.org, they have a helpline. I called the helpline because I was looking for a support group, an in-person support group. I called the line. They were super nice. They emailed me a list of all the support groups in my area based on where I live. Like they'll connect you with a movement disorder specialist. They have centers of excellence all over the country, all over the world. They have, webinars and support groups and videos and blogs and podcasts, and not just for people with Parkinson's, but for the caregivers as well. And not just for Parkinson's disease, but like all the Parkinsonian disorders, And Michael Oken is their chief medical officer. I mean, everybody with Parkinson's knows him in this country. Like he's just such a rock star. And all the support was there. And so I just got so excited because I was like, please, I remember calling them, I remember emailing them, being like, just send me all your information. Like, I just want to give it to everybody. Because if somebody would have taken that they have like a postcard, it's going to be a business card now in their new kit, which is funny because that was actually something that I asked for. So that's what I'm saying. Like they listen and they take feedback and they pivot. And so if somebody had just given me that card with that information, even though I don't think I would have called it in the beginning, because when you first get hit with that information, you're just so like in a daze. But even if you just I would have stuck it someplace, I would have come back to it, when I was ready for that information. And that's when I knew that organization was right for me and that they do focus on the hospital safety kit, that hospital safety piece of patients not getting their medication on time in the hospital. There's so many things that can go wrong for people with Parkinson's in the hospital. Once I found out that they had a whole team just working on that, I was like, oh, yay. Like that's something I just feel so strongly about. There's no reason we should go into the hospital sick and come out sicker, not with Parkinson's disease, not how it is right now. And they're very passionate about that. So it was just kind of like this perfect aligning of the things that I was excited about and the work that they were already doing. So I know I made the right decision for me, and I always encourage everyone. I think you think they're going to be calling you like, do this, do that, blah, blah, blah. It's not like that at all. They're very appreciative of their volunteers, and we just do what we can and they support us in it. And they want us all to live well today, and they are working towards a cure at the same time. So
that's incredible. Thank you. Yeah.
So this is where we come to something called the lightning round, where I play some lightning sounds, but that didn't work again. This is like the sixth time. I gotta figure that out someday. But anyway, I'm just gonna ask you some, fast questions. It's for fun. There's no wrong or right answer, and if you don't like it, we move on. Something you would have liked to have done differently looking back 10 years.
Something I would have done differently. Um, that's a good question. I think the biggest mistake I made was devoting so much time to going back to work. You know, I was a stay-at-home mom when my kids were small, and then when they started school, I went back to work, and I loved my work. But now that I've gone back to not working, I miss it a lot less than I thought I would, you know? So
Interesting.
that was, yeah.
If you could have one wish granted, what would it be? And I usually know the answer, but
Obviously it's obviously that's a cure.
I have to get rid of that question. What do you
You
hope?
are not asking the questions that I wrote down for you, sir.
You want to read? You could say that one. if you want.
Okay, what are 3 words that describe you?
See what you described me?
Only 3.
Okay. Um, persistent.
Okay.
Do they have to be? I'm not gonna make them all good because that would be
Beautiful.
and let's see. Loyal.
I love that. Persistent, beautiful, loyal. Love it.
Go to my questions since she has her. If this is husband and wife question, you can see. If you were asked to write a script to a movie about the story of your life, what would you call it?
I love
That's
this
good. Oh,
one.
I thought you were gonna ask me who would play me.
That's a good
good
one
too.
too.
I like
That's
that.
a good one too. Yeah, I really like that.
Now you got 2 questions
Well,
in lightning.
I just I'm working on a talk that I'm going to do for Parkinson's awareness in April, and so I did like a tentative title of Parkinson's disease from Michael J. Fox to the soccer mom next door.
Oh, I love that. Great.
Who would play you in the movie?
That is so good.
Drew Barrymore. Gotta be Drew Barrymore.
She'd have to go blonde.
You gotta go back to blonde.
Yeah, she has to go back to blonde. That's funny.
Would you like to
Oh,
have your
I have
lightning?
one. If you woke up tomorrow and you were cured from Parkinson's disease, what would you do differently in your life? How would you do life differently?
I don't know that I would. I think that how I've changed has been for the better. So I wouldn't change back to who I was, but there are some activities that I would do that I'm avoiding now, mostly having to do with my symptoms. So I really wanted to teach my kids how to ski. That has been something on my list for a long time. And the cold now is the worst thing for me. Like just thinking about having to get in and out of those the gear and the bib and the boots and the I just know that I don't like the word can't, but I just it's not on my to-do list anymore. So if I did, I would if I got cured tomorrow, I would pack everybody up and we would go skiing immediately.
I love it.
What is one of the most memorable moments that stands out through your work with awareness so far? Oh,
I went to a conference recently and some people recognized me and thanked me for some of the promoting that I had done. You know, I don't get paid for any of this, but it was an organization that I really like called Power for Parkinson's, and they have free online exercise classes. And I was, it just was like a moment where I'm like, I think because I'm always doing things virtually and I'm just in my house and stuff, I forget that people see me and then it's having a real impact on things, you know? And that really touched me. And now that happens a little bit more often when I go places, you know, that in the community that people will say that to me. Actually, yesterday somebody DM'd me. They asked me if I knew a movement disorder specialist in Chicago, and so I referred them to the helpline, and they said, you know, thank you so very much. Like basically, like God brought you into my path. You know, this helped me so much. Things like that. That's the most impactful thing for me.
that's one thing you
And it
mentioned.
doesn't. And anybody can do it. It doesn't take a lot.
Yeah, before we wrap up, there's one thing you mentioned, how it's voluntary. I want to remember everyone here. All our guests are usually doing this voluntary. So if we could all help support Esther in any way, please reach out to her. And one thing I started, not to plug them, but see, this is our actual new mug just came.
Oh,
But it's
that's
the reason I show it is we do not accept money Together for Sharon. What I'm trying to start is a whole new thing where I could help other individuals who are going through the diagnosis, help support them. So any money, it's a link now on the webpage, but if you order a mug, everything goes completely to Stephen Williams from Parkinson Shirts. And I'm trying to think of ways, if even if we could help you, Mark, there you go. So you need to send me a mug, I'll promote it. But if you go to Parkinson's, it's all on my head. That'll help support Esther. But I want you all to have help too, since we don't have a national plan of Parkinson's passed yet. I want to figure out ways now. This is my new mission to help you all with your medicines. Like I don't feel you should even be paying a penny for it. And as a lawyer and an advocate and law enforcement, whatever I did before, I just think that if we can all we don't want anything from Together. We just want to cure, but I want to try and figure out, and that's where I'm going to start brainstorming even after we conclude today. I want to try and figure out ways for every one of our guests, at least, that we can help them. We've had Drive Toward a Cure on. We've had Power Over Parkinson's. I'll be speaking with Power 4 in the future, but we created links directly to them for people to donate. So maybe if we could figure out some other time a link to your website, if you could, we could help sell the shirts so you can help fund medicines for your diagnosis and for Parkinson's. So that's my next, I'm gonna have to write a note after, but that's really, that's something I really want to do because I think, again, together we are just so much stronger, our voices. And on that note, one final question, and maybe if you had some last minute statements or things that we might have missed and how everyone can reach you, but ready, there's another drum roll, which we don't hear because the machine doesn't. Yeah. And I don't want this
silent drum
I
roll.
have to let everyone know listening, and when we share this around the world, and thank you to the Parkinson Foundation, but I wish this podcast would go on for 10 hours, but then Esther won't be my friend anymore. But we have just have so many things that we still didn't get to, like young onset. And but hopefully I always say these podcasts are fun, but they're not the end of the conversation. They have to continue. They have to take this podcast and bring it to the chats and the Facebook and everywhere. Because this is not going to end until we end Parkinson's forever. So again, I'm really honored and thank my wife and everyone for joining us today on a nice, beautiful Saturday when I know you want to get to the children, but if you could leave the Parkinson's community with actually with some words of encouragement, what would those be?
Yeah, I think especially when you get diagnosed, you feel like this is the end of your life, you know? And I see that a lot in newly diagnosed people, especially when they post and stuff, and that desperation. It was a little bit different journey for me because I had a long journey to a diagnosis, and so I had time to process things. So I think my one word of encouragement is just to keep living your life. It's good. Parkinson's is going to take stuff from us. That's inevitable, but not before it's time, you know, and we don't know what that time is for any of us, for anything in life, Parkinson's or not. So just to live in the moment. My movement disorder specialist actually told me that. He said, my prescription for you when you leave today is to stop thinking about the future, Esther. And he's like, you just gotta stop doing that. So that's what I've been focusing on. Living in the moment, living the best day with what we can every day. And when you do it that way in those little easy bites, like it makes it just a lot better. And I am super excited that winter is over because it's beautiful. I know you guys live in
If
Florida.
you
I
come
live in
to
El
Florida, you might
Paso.
not go back.
It is
Yeah.
beautiful sunny day outside, and not every day has to be about Parkinson's.
Well, I just
Hello.
want to thank you. Oh, how can everyone reach you? Do you have a website or mainly just or how can we order a shirt if Greta and I want to donate?
Yeah, so this is again from Parkinson's T-shirts, Steve's
There you go.
company. Yeah, that is. I'll put a link in my link tree. I always have the links to everything I'm doing in my link tree. I'm shaking in my boots one on Instagram and Facebook. I'm Esther Labib Kiyaras on X, and I'm Esther Labib Kiyaras on TikTok because it wouldn't take my whole name. But if you just Google Esther, you'll see there. And I mean, my main focus as always is just supporting the Parkinson's Foundation as much as we can. But this year, doing the moving days, reaching out if you want to bring a moving day to your town. I firmly believe if every single city had an ambassador in that city, no matter how big or small, like what an amazing, powerful thing that would be to give everybody a voice. That's what I do all the time, is just connect people, you know. And then secondly, I'm going to be doing more things with YOPN, the Young Onset Parkinson's Network, which is an organization started by Anna Grill, who herself was diagnosed with young onset Parkinson's disease several years ago. And so it's just building community support groups, podcasts, media, all that stuff, so that, you know, those of us under 50, although they, like we say, once young onset, always young onset, you know, it's kind of a different animal. It's not like you age out of it. So learning from those that have come before me is a big thing that I've been working on this year, and not having to feel like always you're just trying to figure it out by yourself, because there's just so many amazing people that have you know, cleared the path in front of us, that I really love to. I like to watch like the TEDx's that everybody does, and grow my YouTube. That's the other thing I'm kind of going to be doing this year, is growing my YouTube.
One thing that I think, if I had again a soundboard, I'd be playing the song Fighter with Christina Aguilera, because every time I see you online, I think your smile is, I don't like the word infectious, but I think it is, shows that people, even though they're diagnosed, and caregivers and everyone involved with this, can still live a happy life, and, you know, show that you have to stand up, and you have, yeah, everyone has a voice, but we have to use it. And I'm really grateful for your time today and joining us, and just want to thank you and your family again for everything you do. And we didn't get to, but obviously we have our podcast, which I love. I get excited every month, and I wanted you and my wife to talk about your podcast about sex and things. We didn't have time, but I think that's great, because not about that topic, but it's, you need to tackle the tough topics. I have a blog, but we don't cover that, but it's something that I think that has to be discussed if you have to really change things in the world. And I think, again, you're changing things for the positive and for the better. So I just, again, from both of our hearts, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks.
Thank you, Esther. Lovely meeting you.
Thanks everyone
Nice to meet you too.
Thanks for listening today. This has been another episode of Together for Sharon podcast with Sharon and George. That's me. And on this side, that side, my lovely wife, Greta, who are both caregivers to my mother, Sharon. So again, please share this. It's not hopefully going to end with just this conversation. We have to keep it going. Reach out to your local senators to help support the national plan to end Parkinson's, which we didn't get to, and just so many more. And also walk. I mean, they usually come to many cities, many towns. If you're free in your state, please join Esther. She'd love a picture. She likes picture opportunities. I want one with you one day. And if you're in South Florida, join us in the upcoming months. But again, thanks, and just sending our love. I always say this towards the end. We love you all, and this includes you too, Esther. We support you. We care a lot about you, and you're never alone. We'll all advocate for you, and together our voices are so much stronger. And I always say we're just getting started, even though in a way we haven't. But every morning I wake up, see Esther's post, see some journey that I wasn't aware of. Just the other day, Mr. Parker, a baseball player, Mark taught me that he just was diagnosed with Parkinson's, and I reached out and they responded. So it's pretty amazing. And, you know, everyone is just touching lives, changing them. But the main thing is no one's ever alone. And again, thank you, Esther, and have an incredible night, day, and week, everyone. We'll still be out there fighting for you, and reach out. We're just an email away. So thanks again.